we work real hard on our company culture and promoting people from within and trying to acknowledge their goals and to help raise the level and move them into positions. I don't think a company can actually grow unless they're recruiting people that want to grow within the company, improve themselves, and achieve higher marks, higher limits.
I don't throw darts at a board. Go down to sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it.
Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Property Management Podcast. Today, I have Lyle and Taylor out of Denver, Colorado. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've known each other for quite some time now. I've been able to kind of witness y'all's journey in residential property management. But for those that don't know, give us some background on yourselves and the company.
Go ahead, Taylor.
All right. So I have been a part of our company full time for about 5 years. I grew up in the company. I spent a lot of Saturdays doing showings and late night phone calls of after hours emergencies. To be honest, never in my wildest dreams that I would work in this industry. I will be
Who
quoted.
does, right?
Yeah, who does? Yeah.
Yes, quoted many times saying I hate my parents' job. But went to college, went to business school. I did some off-campus housing in college. Kind of liked it, got my feet wet, and then
Lyle, founder, how'd you get into the industry?
You know, it's interesting. I've always had roots in real estate. I started with Procter & Gamble out of college, and I just felt like there was more. And I was thinking, if Procter & Gamble's making money off my efforts, what if I gave all my efforts to something I'm trying to accomplish and just to me and my goals? And so I got into real estate in 1983, sold lots and lots of homes and enjoyed that, but quite honestly, it wasn't that fulfilling. Then a partner in real estate, he and I created a chain of retail sign stores, and we did that for a while. Then we closed that down, and then I went into the mortgage business. Had a very successful mortgage company until the big 2008, when all of us had the
meltdown.
The huge meltdown, and it melted us down. So I'll tell you the story. And so I finally, as people were leaving and it was melting down, I walked down the hall, and my wife and I always have offices opposite each other in distance. And I walked down, she had tears in her eyes. I said, honey, what's wrong? And she said, it is so negative and depressing. She said, it's driving me crazy. I said, you know what? It's time to pack your bags and let's go home. She said, but what will we do? What will he do? And I said, leave that to me. We'll figure it out. So we did. We packed up our personal things from the office and we moved home. And I started researching different industries. And believe it or not, I was looking at waste disposal. Yes. At the same time, we're looking at property management, and I had just so much experience in property management. I wanted to figure out where I wanted to go. So in a nutshell, I did the analytics on it, and I said, you know what? I need to get on a plane, made a decision. I flew to Phoenix to a NARPM conference, and I walked around, and people kept asking me, how many doors do you manage? And I said, I don't manage doors. Well, then what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm trying to determine if I want to go into property management. So I'm really looking at you right now. And so to this day, I still remember the reactions. But anyway,
That's
I came
wild. What a wild way to start. You went straight to NARPM. A lot of folks discover NARPM 10 years in, oh, I wish I had found out sooner. You showed up before you were even in the business.
Yeah, showed up. So I came home, and my wife Paula said, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to property management. And she said, okay. And I said, in fact, I already booked you a trip. You're on your way to Dallas right now to learn our software. So that's how it started. And quite honestly, we just initially, we wanted to see who was doing it right and what the pieces and parts were to create a successful company. But deep down, the reason why we did this is because through our research, there were so many mom and pop shops out there. There was a real need for a sophisticated approach and a big company mentality. So although we're a family, we went into this with the approach that we're a business, we're going to be a big business, and this is how we start off. So we started that way, and we've grown and just living the life. We enjoy it.
So in case it wasn't obvious to anybody listening, you guys are father and daughter working together in the business. So you have that family dynamic going, but obviously for the majority of the time that you were doing it, that wasn't necessarily the case. Talk to me a little bit about kind of maintaining and building that family dynamic. You have other people in the office. I've worked in environments where there was a couple of people that were related. How do you navigate some of those family dynamics in the office?
Well, Taylor has her opinion, and I want to hear it, and I'm sure she'll share it. But we made a promise to each other in the beginning that we understood very clearly that nobody wants to work in an environment where there's this family, personal bickering and issues and things you drag to work. It just makes people so uncomfortable. So we both made a promise to each other that, boy, when we open that door and we cross that threshold, it's all business. And we refer to each other differently. And it's nothing about what happened on the way or personal things. And so we have maintained that extremely successful. Otherwise, I don't think we could grow and have people that want to stay with us. So it was from the very beginning, and we still do that. And since my daughter has been brought into the company, and I usually refer to her as Taylor instead of my daughter, well, she's maintained that as well. So what's your version, Taylor?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, this is a career. It's not a job. So I look at it at that kind of next high level. When I went to college, I told my parents I wanted to make a lot of money because I wanted to have red bottom Prada soled shoes. So I wanted a career that could get me there. So for me, I treat it just like a career. I don't want anybody to think that I have special opportunities or it was easy for me. Being in a family-owned and operated business, everybody thinks that it's so easy. Your parents are there. They'll get you anything you want. Definitely not the case. And being the daughter of the boss, you have so much to prove because there is so much pressure to prove that you're not just having everything handed to you. So you work so hard to get there and to have all that opportunity that you earned. And so, very professional in our office. We refer to each other as Lyle and Taylor. Sometimes when we hire new employees, they don't even know that we're related until a few months in.
Yeah. And so that dynamic in terms of how it plays out day to day, what is your role within the company?
Yes. So my primary function is business development. So I really focus on growing the business, collaborating with our marketing team to, they bring on the leads and I work to close them. And then a lot of what I do is client success. So when we do have owners, reaching out, seeing how we can improve. If someone's maybe not having the great experience, having that personal conversation with them to see how we can keep them to stay, improving there. And then I do a little bit of operations as well and making sure that our company is growing to the next level. Being first generation and second generation, there's a lot of valuable stuff that Lyle and Paula created initially, but being new and fresh, I have new ideas and stuff that I like to bring to the table. So making sure our company is growing, not only in size, but in efficiency, opportunity, and innovation.
So wait a minute. Are you taking credit for our company growing? Did I hear that right now?
Well, let's let her keep doing it and running with it. Tell me about that. How is growth going? What's current door count? What are you guys adding monthly, yearly?
Yeah, so right now we're at about 850 doors. We have year-to-date grew by almost 250 this year so far.
It's impressive.
Yes. So we are in major growth mode. When I first started 5 years ago, we had like 400 units. It was like me and Paula and one other employee. The three of us would hang out in the office every day. Now we have 20 employees. So we're growing and stuff like that. And business is going really, really well. We have a group of people that are there to have fun and work hard. And we're implementing a bunch of technology to help bring us to that next level. And so it's a lot of fun.
Tell Jordan about your first experiences being a BDM.
Yes. So in classic family-owned company status, my dad's like, hey, you know what? You've been doing really great. I think I'm going to have you start, talking to people that are interested in our services. I'm like, all right, cool. So we get our first new lead call, right? Haven't done this ever before. My dad's not the greatest trainer. He's like, I'm going to lunch. Don't forget our monthly management fee is 10%. You got this. And left. And that was my whole training experience.
You got the 10% right.
Yep, got that.
True story.
Yep.
And how'd the call go?
Well, I signed him up, to be honest with you. They had bed bugs, they had a squatter, and he was past due on rent, but nailed it.
Got him in the door.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a great close.
So one thing I've enjoyed in my conversations with you is that you have been really persistent and you've been willing to innovate over time. I observe different people have differing identities around change and growth and how much change they can tolerate. And I've observed that you have the constitution to tolerate quite a bit of change. On the sales and marketing piece, to get to this point where you're adding 250 doors a year, that's pretty aggressive. When I hear that, I hear infrastructure. I know that that wasn't an ebook that you bought on how to grow your property management business or a piece of software. That's a totality of a lot of trial and failure to get to this point. What do you have to say about the work that was done and required to get to this point where now you can actually be experiencing and absorbing that kind of growth?
Well, I'll be honest with you. With every entrepreneur who creates a company, there's a time when they need to step back and allow other people to exercise that creativity and take it where they left off. And I recognize that. And when I recognized that, a light went on, and there's no turning back. Now that I've stepped back and I serve more as a visionary and as an advisor to our company, younger thoughts, people familiar with software that I'm unfamiliar with, and a new thought process has been injected into our company. And so that's one thing I've done. The other thing is we work real hard on our company culture and promoting people from within and trying to acknowledge their goals and to help raise the level and move them into positions. I don't think a company can actually grow unless they're recruiting people that want to grow within the company, improve themselves, and achieve higher marks, higher limits. And so stepping back enabled me to do that, not to be so caught up in it, and to allow these new technologies, new things to take place. And I got to tell you, it was the best thing I ever did, is get out of the day-to-day.
Well, this is really interesting. What you're saying is the more you pulled back, the more the company was growing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Correlation, causation. That's really interesting. I don't hear that often.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no question. And the more I continue to pull back, I believe the greater the positive results are going to be, because I get to lead from a different level. I'm always looking for the opportunities. I'm looking for the unknowns. I'm looking for the game changers and the disruptors. And so I like that best. If I can start working on that and working on expansion and going to new markets and looking, that's really affecting us dramatically.
Let's talk about delegation versus abdication. A lot of people would say, yeah, Lyle, I'd love to leave and have the business grow. What was the infrastructure that you put in place that gave you permission and allowed you to get that kind of a positive response from moving back as a precursor to being able to step back a bit?
I think, and I'm going to go ahead and give my daughter credit, Taylor, first name basis here, Taylor credit for what she deserves. Taylor took all that she learned about, there's so many things to discuss here, but the attitude, the drive, and everything she grew up with, and she had an opportunity to jump in now and to put that in play. Plus, Taylor is Taylor. She's dynamic, she's aggressive, and she wants to bring so much into the company in the way of automation and systems that I didn't sit back, I stood back and watched it happen. And she started deploying all of this and bringing the pieces and the players in. Recruiting is very serious, and we take that very seriously, and all of us are involved at that at some point, some level. But I think along with allowing Taylor to break free, allowing Paula to achieve new goals for herself. She's always been our bookkeeper, and we rely on that, and she signs all our checks. But also she went into a new position as an integrator. So if Paula becomes the integrator, Taylor is the implementer, and we're all managing different pieces of business. I manage everything sales related and marketing, the marketing team, the real estate team, and the BDM department. Taylor manages the leasing department, her share of the BDMs, and what else? That's pretty good. And then Paula manages, really honestly, the property managers report to Paula ultimately, and that's kind of how we're structured. And we created, this is so much to throw out there, but we've created pods within all that with teams. So So to answer your question, I stepped back and we focused on our culture, our hiring is the best people we could. We have several people, most of our team has college degrees, if that means anything. Some of them have secondary degrees and experience, and that's what we look for. But more than that, we look for a cultural fit, and then people prosper.
So Taylor, when you came into the business, you have this sense that this could be yours. If you do it well, I mean, obviously I assume that wasn't a given, right? Your parents weren't gonna let you run into the ground, but if you ran it well, that's a dream scenario to have an obvious succession plan with family. What was your approach coming in knowing that there was a learning curve? It's this weird dichotomy of, on the one hand, you probably do have a bit more latitude than somebody else might in your situation. On the other hand, you're having to learn the thing. What did that balance of both having patience to really earn your spurs and learn, while also having that fresh set of eyes and probably seeing certain levels of like obvious dysfunction that you just wanted to change from day one? How did you navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said earlier, I in college worked for off-campus housing. So I worked for a huge corporate company that manages hundreds of thousands of apartment units across the country. So I came from it where they just told us top down exactly what we need to do. And I enjoyed it. And so my parents were like, hey, why don't you work for us this year? See what you think and then go from there. So coming into it, it was a huge shift from more of the multifamily to single family. So I spent just a lot of time kind of learning and soaking it in and understanding. And, a lot of what we focus on in our business is, the cheesy stuff, best practices, like limiting liability and risk. So really learning from there and then going through stuff and realizing, there's a better way to do this. We bump heads occasionally. We're very similar.
To be expected.
Yes. The two of us are extremely similar in personalities. Ego occasionally shows its face here and there. So the two of us had a lot of challenges initially of, being excited, coming out of college. This is what I learned. This is what we have to do. And him saying like, but this works. So there was a lot of growing between the two of us of, appreciating everything that Paul and Lyle had done, where we've been, but understanding like the fresh set of eyes. And that's what I brought in because I didn't know a ton about it. I was like, but why aren't we doing this? I don't understand. And then kind of learning and working together in that way. So it took a little bit of time. As you know me, I'm not very shy. So I definitely pop my opinions out there sooner than later. But
one of the things we were talking about last night was this distinction between family, viewing the company and the organization as a family, which is like, it's a great feeling. I see why people gravitate to that. There's a lot of warm fuzzies there, versus a sports team, a high-performing organization with a goal in mind, a path to get there, and a high degree of scrutiny around all decisions through the lens of, is this going to advance that goal? In our conversation, you guys identified that you identify as a sports team rather than the family metaphor. That's something that's deeply meaningful to me as well. When you facilitate that conversation with your team, what do those internal communications look like, specifically around this metaphor of being a sports team trying to win a championship?
I know one of the things we said that you enjoyed hearing last night, and we're not really a sports team. We don't talk much about the sports team, and I thought about the Superbowl one time, and it just made so much sense to me that I'm trying to use this in a way that's positive. Unfortunately, one of the metaphors we used was with folks that are just not pulling their weight. It's during a discussion about their performance, and we make it very clear if it's needed that we're going to the Super Bowl, and that some
of you will be coming.
Yeah, you may not be on the bus, and we've told people that, and so they identify with that. So it's a metaphor that worked and continues to work, but they understand, they see the vision where we're going. And when we say we're going to the Super Bowl and you may not be on the bus, that's kind of a wake-up call. And that's about the only sports metaphor we use. Really?
That's when it comes up.
Really for disciplinary.
Got it. Okay. Good to know. Well, I mean, the truth is you don't cut family members, right? I mean, family members don't get cut. I guess in rare circumstances,
Oh, no.
they do. But generally speaking, that weird aunt or uncle, they're sticking around.
I have fired my mother-in-law twice.
Wow.
True story.
True
Yep.
story.
I can't imagine. We won't
can
go
talk
there,
about more
but
positive things,
yeah, I
but-
won't imagine that. That sounds like a lot. You had to let her know there wasn't a seat on the bus for her anymore, heading
Oh,
to the
no.
stadium.
No, or sitting on the floor near the door.
Yeah.
She was not going with us.
Well, that analogy, it works for me, and it is clarifying, and it can be sterile. You talked about it in the scenario where you have to have a hard conversation, and that feels totally fair to me to communicate. There is a standard and a common goal shared amongst us. I want to win the Super Bowl, and I want you to too. Who wins the Super Bowl? Is it the franchise owner? Is it Jerry Jones? Is it Mark Cuban? It's the players. The players on the court, on the field. They're the ones that walk away with the ring. And the commitment that they make to one another is that they're willing to have an honest conversation, assessing their skill and ability at all times and saying, am I the right person? And if I'm not, I may have to move to a different seat. And it's just it's implicit in a high performance environment. Now, the condition there is the possibility of winning a championship. That idea of what I just articulated, it doesn't really work if you're at 100 doors and you don't plan on ever growing beyond 100 doors. It's kind of like, well, we're not, you have all the ruthlessness, but none of the upside of actually winning a championship. You guys are now growing. You're adding headcount. What is the destination? When you think about where you're wanting to take it, what are you aiming for over the next 3 or 4 years?
That's interesting, and I'll start that off, and then Taylor can chime in. With every new venture, with the creation, an entrepreneur always plans you want to plan the entrance and you want to plan the exit. So while I built our company, with the exit in mind and timing, and timing's wonderful right now if we wanted to get out, okay. But all of a sudden, when Taylor became so interested in working to earn an interest in the company and to buy an interest in the company, all of a sudden it completely tweaked my paradigm. I'm not working to sell the company. I'm not looking for that
Big exit.
Not looking for it. But what I'm looking for now is the dynamic growth, and that's what drives me and what interests me. So that needs to be clarified, because I think that's so critical. It was a huge paradigm. It didn't shift. It didn't happen overnight, but now it's fascinating. It's fun, and it drives me. So Jordan, what was the rest of your question?
I'm getting lost in it myself here. It was really, where are you trying to take things now? Okay. So you have this continuity plan in place. You're clearly not dying to get out of the business. Where does that put you now?
Okay. We want to be the absolutely highest performing, most exhaustive service provider in the property management industry in the state of Colorado. And that is our goal. And while there are a lot of people coming into our market and a lot of jumping around and shifting within the market, we have a foothold. We have a dynamic group of owners that appreciates us and wants to grow with us, and we're doing the right things. So while we're here at this conference, we're not just looking for lack of anything trivial to say, what fee I can implement. We're way beyond implementation of fees. We're looking at expansion opportunities while we're here, but we're looking at automation. We're looking at what are things we can do to be the very, very best and supply that service that's outstanding in our market. And as long as we continue to do that, we'll continue to thrive. So to round that up, we plan on being the top-end provider for the state of Colorado. Right now, we have a business in Fort Collins, the Denver metro area, and we've just branched into Colorado Springs and a little bit into Pueblo. We are working throughout the Front Range. We're working on penetration right now in those areas.
And how about you? What's your vision, Taylor?
To be honest with you, it's just up. There's not a magic number in mind of how large we want to get to, a number of employees or anything like that. Right now, we're just so excited with the idea of organic growth. Obviously, a huge top of a discussion in our industry is acquisitions and purchasing.
Mhm.
That's not at all in our goals. We really want to generate these leads organically, convert them so that we have people that sign up with our services because they love us. So our goal is just to keep going until maybe that magic number comes into play. But like Lyle said, providing wow service, going above and
Exhaustive.
beyond everybody else.
Well, let's talk blocking and tackling with growth. First, let's break down the strategy, channel strategy. Where is new business coming from right now? What channels are dominant for you guys?
From the internet, I spend a tremendous amount of money on marketing and on marketing. I have a full-fledged marketing team within our company that
How many folks?
I have 2.5 on payroll, and then we work with somebody on a full-time basis in Afghanistan and other places. That all they do is marketing. That's it.
Wow, that's a beefier effort than most folks have. Most folks have nobody in a full-time marketing capacity, which kills me because my hard skill is marketing. As an entrepreneur, you kind of got to do it all, but everybody has kind of a core hard skill, whether it be finance, ops, whatever. Mine is marketing. Marketing almost always gets the short end of the stick. And for property managers that want to grow, who do they hire? They hire a salesperson, which is interesting because oftentimes if they don't have any lead gen, they're expecting that salesperson to do outbound. And that is a tough row to hoe to generate all your own deals, as opposed to following up and closing on inbound leads that are already coming. What types of activities do you have the marketing team engaging in to produce the lead gen that is allowing you to grow 250 units in a year?
We have an active social marketing campaign that I really don't give too much credit to in our particular situations. Social marketing hasn't really generated conversionable leads for us. We work I dump a tremendous amount of money in our website and web pages, and also we do Google ads and not often though. I want to make this real clear. We don't do a lot of Google ads because that's paying for that lead generation where I want it organic. And this started 15 years ago. This isn't something that I think somebody can go out and I don't know if you threw big money at something like this, if you could just go out and buy, first or second spot on Google. I don't think so. Okay. But 15 years ago, I knew this because my background, Jordan, is marketing also, and graduated with a marketing degree. And so we started way back working on our website, and we continued to improve our website over the years and bring in more talented people and expand. I think we have at least 300 pages on our website, and this team runs analytics on a daily, and they're constantly tweaking, and they're very aware of when Google's doing a sweep and the bots, and I've just got an incredible team working on this. I'm very fortunate.
Bryn here from LeadSimple. I love LeadSimple, but that feels like a given. Instead of telling you why I love it, here's Sarah Hatch from Hatch Property Management.
We're very happy, and I recommend so many people to LeadSimple because I'm like, oh my gosh, it changed our world. It's totally changed our whole way of managing properties and staying in contact. It's the best business investment I've ever made.
To learn more and connect with one of my teammates, go to leadsimple.com/podcast today.
So you built that infrastructure on the marketing side. What about on the sales side? Are you the sole BDM? Are there multiple BDMs?
Yes, so we have 2 BDMs. So originally it was just myself. And then we had a marketing assistant in our company that ended up being the right personality that we promoted to being a BDM. And so we were BDMs together. We worked with Lyle. We kind of self-trained, went through objections. But really what helped us to make the big difference, I'll give all of the credit to Renscale, is they helped us develop a playbook. As a salesperson, you're like, there's 300 objections. How do you handle this? How do you handle this? And Jeremy Pound would always say, well, is it an objection to price, service offering, like honing that in to be what it was to simplify it, because I don't have a sales background. Our other BDM doesn't have a sales background, so it was very new for us. So we worked with Renscale to generate the playbook. We got really good at it. And then what really clicked for us as BDMs is confidence. we do get occasionally asked, Renee is my teammate, on, how are you closing so many deals? What are you guys doing? And yes, we did train. We had resources that helped us get there. But there was a point in time where it was just like confidence. You're closing deals, you're feeling you're doing good at it, you're building relationships, the conversion rate is growing. That it was just really that confidence.
It's maturity in the industry.
Yeah.
And coaching that I think that really kicked off our BDM team. Coaching from day one. This is another example of where I step back. I personally feel like I could sell ice to Eskimos. I feel real confident about that, and I can. But things are a little different. And so when I surrendered, I'm going to say surrendered because that's something I hold close to me, is sales and marketing. When I surrendered to an outside coach, we also saw results from that too.
You make a really interesting point. You being in that sales role is the same thing as me being in the sales role. And I am very open and acknowledging my sales team that that's cheating, because I'm me. I'm the owner. I'm not working with the same kind of constraints that my sales guy has. He can't flex up and say, yeah, it's my company. I'm the owner. Did you see me on the podcast? Did you see me speaking on stage? Would you like to buy? He can't do that. And that's where real scalable sales begins, is training that is transferable and can be equipped to somebody that doesn't have that unique advantage that I have. So I love the shout out to Jeremy and the Rent Scale crew. That makes a ton of sense. In terms of where you're at right now, just managing the leads, what kind of volume are you dealing with on a monthly basis? How many valid leads come in? Ballpark.
Qualified leads, we get about 25 a week.
About 25 a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's some solid lead flow. And this is where this interesting conversation comes into play, where folks want to hire a salesperson and they don't have any leads. And they feel like it's the same thing as having two salespeople in your situation. Well, Lyle has two salespeople. I want two salespeople. Well, how many leads do you have? Completely different paradigm, asking somebody to cold prospect and do outbound. And really what's interesting is oftentimes I'll talk to owners that are like 300 doors and they say, I'm stuck. I don't know how to grow my business. And my first thought is, well, how'd you get the first 300 doors? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, I did a bunch of things I'm no longer willing to do.
Absolutely. You nailed it.
Hungry.
I was a speaker at a NARPA meeting recently, and everybody was asking the quote 4 experts on the stage questions. So I said, okay, I'm going to take the mic and I'm going to start asking you questions. And I said, I know who's on page 1 and 2 and 3 on Google. I know who they are and where they are in the room. I said, those are inbound leads. And I said, I know exactly who they are. And I said, however, there are a lot of successful people in the room. How did you generate those leads? How did you go get those leads? How did you get to where you are? And so I started calling people out. So that's when those things that you just mentioned, Jordan, the things that people are not willing to do now, maybe they are 200, 300, you started hearing all those. And so suddenly people's eyes started lighting out because I know about the incoming. They're out there getting them on their own. So you just said that. It was kind of like people are looking at each other like, well, maybe I should do that now because they're struggling for business. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
That flywheel, though, the marketing flywheel, that takes time. If you want to spin that up, you're going to spend a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I've always said the most expensive question that you can ask is, how do I grow my business? That is a very, very expensive question. That is the naive question that introduces a vendor that's like, well, you sound like you need the $250,000 package here. Whereas if you ask a more tactical question, like I remember one time hiring a vendor to do link building from .edu and .gov websites. So this is within the domain of SEO.
Yep.
And this is link building. And this is link building from high authority domains. Incredibly narrow. So it was really easy for me to judge the success of that. I was owning the totality of the outcome and I was asking for something tactical as opposed to, how do I grow my business? There's a certain level of effort and get up that you have to be willing to apply. And in many cases, writing the check is the easiest part. Agree?
Absolutely. In my case, marketing is what I enjoy the most. So I have 3 times a week, I have an early morning SEO meeting, and we cover different things in those meetings about the business. I also have my team working on a different business, another SEO business. But we stay on task. We analyze exactly what's going on. We talk about where we're going to flex and what we're going to do. But that's right. It's writing the check, but also understanding what you're trying to achieve and the cost. I mentioned to you that I have 2.5 people full-time, 2 full-and-a-half-time employee in the company. That's one check. I'm involved in all kinds of things across the internet that I write checks for. And so as I told that group, the meeting last week, I don't think if you really plan on staying in business and you truly want to grow your business, you understand what it means to grow, you can't invest enough money in marketing. You have to commit to the money, and it's not a month, it's not 2 months, it's year after year you commit to it, because it's only going to grow in increments.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my advice to the group: commit to it.
And the interesting part is that it's not just the check; it's the owner involvement. You take personal interest, and I see that making such a big difference as opposed to folks that want to cut a check, and the act of cutting the check is kind of like their way of getting out of it. Like, I paid so and so. What's going on? I don't know, but I cut them a check. Like, it's their problem now. It's their. I mean, rarely does that work out, as opposed to, again, doing the work, understanding the context, having a specific need, and hiring a vendor for a specific tactical pain point.
Just want to, I'll add something to that, Jordan. I know this is your show, but I want to add to that.
Please.
Okay. That I'm often get asked by a lot of my buds, so what are you doing? What are you doing? Talk to me so I can do that. And so I start talking to them a little bit, and I can just see their eyes glass over there, and they're looking at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And really quickly, I start shifting that, there are fabulous vendors inside that convention room, and I'll walk you over to one of them and introduce you, because unless you embrace that and you truly understand what you're doing and you enjoy it, it's not going to happen the same way.
And you mentioned Renscale, and I think they're a great example because they are enablement. They're not doing lead gen for you. They send to you 0 leads each month, but they will teach you how to fish. And I think that's a really healthy disposition. I think similarly to make a pivot on the technology side, I've seen you guys adopt an increasing level of technology over time and get a return on that. Technology is one piece of the puzzle. Technology as an idea or as a concept is something that we all get, right? Everybody at this convention understands more technology in the business, modernization, it's very attractive. Where the rubber meets the road is the human effort to resolve the will to actually get to that last mile. When you went through some of the workflow automation, transition and transformation recently, what did the last mile look like for you? How did you get over the final hump to go from having something that was like mostly set up, a lot of useful training people, to like actually getting like actual business value?
Yes. So it's team buy-in. So for me, I learned about automation. Lyle's also super jazzed about automation. We're like pumped. We're so excited. Team just love it just as much as we do. And they're like, ooh, but that's so much work. So originally we started out kind of stair-stepping it in, having our team members create their own processes and then me going in and reviewing them. And we just found that like the buy-in, it became work, not a benefit. So we kind of tweaked that where, I would generate the processes, the team would go in and use them and use feedback. And the more people started to see the benefits, like, oh my gosh, I don't have to remember that, or that's an automatic email that's just going out now, or that's templated, I don't have to spend 15 minutes to write that. It started to kind of turn the tables for team buy-in. And our team is so funny. Every time we come to a convention, they're like, oh God, they're coming back. What are we going to have to do now? You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So it's like, we get all amped and we're like, staff, just love it.
Yeah.
Shove it down your throat and love it, And so for us, it takes coddling and nurturing for them to see the big picture like we do.
It's making them part of the process too.
Yeah.
They have to help build it and be part of that process. Like KPIs. A KPI is a number, unless you truly know what it means.
Context.
The context. There you go. So we do a lot with KPIs, and the part that I saw that really improved our performance was, instead of reporting your KPIs, I want you to give me a summary statement of that period of time. And so each one of them has to look at it and interpret that information. They own that information, and then they would report it. And along with reporting is receiving. So if they were just throwing stuff at the managers to look at and they weren't getting any feedback or involvement, it wasn't going to go anywhere. So we get involved with every one of the KPIs that are reported. I have a master sheet that I selected certain things to go into, but it's the same thing with the KPIs and with the systems. It's ownership, and it's also setting goals based on both those items.
So did you see any movement or any changes related to the KPIs? Like making the investment that you made in adopting technology automation, did you see any impact on any specific KPIs?
Yeah, so like Lau mentioned earlier, I work a lot with BDM and leasing. So with implementing technology, we average about 250 showings a week. So for us,
That's
we
incredible.
had to have, infrastructure and technology in place to make that possible. Because with that 250 showings, we only have about 20 listings. So we're showing units 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. And so when we first, started, it required a lot of follow-up from a staff member of, hey, you saw this property, what's your feedback? Or let's get you going on the application. Now with software that we're using, basically a CRM for leasing, that's just happening automatically. So we're getting feedback without having to ask. Application links are being automatically sent without a staff member being like, hey, I think we had a showing yesterday. Let me send the application. And then, especially with the automation that we've implemented, we receive thousands of leasing phone calls a week. That what we created, especially in LeadSimple, is the minute, an application is submitted, it says, thank you so much for your application. Please don't call, we'll call you. So that helped to cut down on inbound inquiries just from the tenant side of things. And we found that we weren't missing steps, especially with, moving tenants into properties and onboarding new clients. We were able to put together a flow of automation that they would receive with conditional logic that applied to them so that it felt still personalized, but at these key touch points. Like you had a tenant move in, 90 days later, we're following up with you because we just did a walkthrough of the property. After that, we asked for a survey to see how their experience is going, different stuff like that, so that it wasn't the mental brain calories, it was automation, but still personalized.
We have 18 processes that we built out in our CRM, and we're working real hard in the sales area now to put together a pretty extensive process, real estate sales also.
Beautiful. So what about auditability? I always think it's interesting transitioning, going from a conversation where you ask a team member, did you do XYZ? And you hope and pray you get a good answer, versus just being able to go see if XYZ was actually done. Do you have that level of auditability now in terms of being able to see tasks completion?
Yes. So we have the ability through the software to see what is actually being completed to hold people accountable. But with that, Lyle touched on it earlier, our team culture is so on point that everybody wants to participate and contribute and be a part of the A players, that, people have the desire to want to succeed and provide results. So, we can see it in the software that stuff is happening, but we do the EOS. And so that has really helped to bring our company to the next level as well, because it's, are you on track? Are you off track? Going through it as a group to make sure everybody's on target as well.
You were looking for audit, right?
Yeah.
How do we know?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So explain a little bit about that. No, this is yours. Okay, you take this. How do we know? Okay, and I want to point out one thing. When you've got this much going on, and our business is so fee-based, from a $10 fee to
Yes.
Okay. So we have all these little fees that are part of what drives the big picture. So my question for everybody is, are we getting those fees?
Collecting the money.
Collect the money. Yeah, we collecting the money, and then is it correctly being put into bookkeeping? The whole process is very extensive. So the audit. Let's just talk about leasing.
Auditability.
Auditability. You can look at it, we can look at it, we can analyze where things are and what steps, and if it's been done correctly, because I don't know what the words are, but we're like the end user, so to speak. And so we review those numbers constantly to make sure.
I think that in terms of making this transition with technology, what sticks out to me, obviously we talked about buy-in. That's huge. Connecting your core values, your business operating philosophy, and embedding that in the systems and the technology so that it doesn't become just an efficiency game. Big believer in efficiency, like making money, profits, where the money comes from. But there has to be a core philosophy that is driving and kept at the forefront as we're building all of these systems. So it's not just purely an engineering and logistics game. What does that look like for you? How do you make sure that the spirit of the company is preserved as you're adding all of this technology and you don't get too distanced from the front lines?
So that's a discussion about culture, right? Is that okay? And so with culture, I did an interesting analysis. I thought, I know what we want to say our culture is and what we want to project, but it's words to somebody else. And unless those words are embraced and we're living it and they're living it, it means nothing. It's just like so many of the websites out there. We all say a lot of the same stuff. So I took, it was at least 300 reviews, good and bad. And I created an Excel spreadsheet. Actually, I was on a whiteboard. And I had everybody reading the reviews, and every time an adjective came up about caring, communicative, responsive, I would write it down and put a check mark on it. So it's real interesting as we develop these core values, and we are caring, communicative, we're family, and boom, boom, boom. We have 5 core values. But as we develop these, I want to make sure that we're living it. So the best way to understand if you're living your core values is, what are people saying about you? So we're constantly analyzing them. In fact, we have it keyworded so that when they come up, we see them in red. It's really fun how we're doing this. So that's what we did. And so that's how we analyze what people outside are really thinking about us as a company, and if we're on target with our core values. I can't think of a better way. And so we use those core values, and I'm just telling everybody how to go get your business now. But we use those core values in how we discuss things with our customers, because that's absolutely what they're looking for. And if you aren't those, I wouldn't suggest trying to use them. But if you are those and you emulate that and you bring that in. So a core value is hardworking. And along with caring, communicative, hardworking, and family, the hardworking aspect is we're all hardworking and we thrive on other hardworking people. And I'm not saying my people work 80 hours. In fact, I would be very unhappy and disappointed if that was going on. And that's a reflection on me as an employer. And I want people to have great, fun lives after work, and to turn the phones off at 5 o'clock and get on with life. But hardworking while you're there, being a performer and producing results. It's all about results, not activity. We focus on results.
I love that. I've heard it said that your brand is the sum of emotions that are felt when your name comes up.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's not what you want to say about yourself.
Yeah.
It's not your collateral. It's not your color. It's not your logo.
How do you feel?
Yeah, it's the emotion that's felt in relation to what you do. And I think culture is the same. And so I like the honest approach that you're taking of just surveying what's said, because what's said is what is. And if we can reconcile ourselves with what is, we're way ahead of the curve. Well, guys, I appreciate you coming on here. As we come to a close, I have a parting question for you, and that is, what does it mean to you both to be an entrepreneur? What is the kind of the essence, the core of it, of what drives you and keeps you stimulated as an entrepreneur?
You were the entrepreneur.
Okay. What drives me is achieving. What drives me is competition. I love competition. I have so many wonderful colleagues outside the door and in that convention room that every day I just love it. I love the competition. I love being part of the picture, but I love winning. I love to win. Okay. I love being part of the competition. I love to win. And I know that's pretty simple. That's what drives me.
You're getting me stoked just listening to you say it, honestly.
Yeah, and when you can look at it from numbers, and I don't know what the rest of us are doing, but I focus on what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I can see us doing this and doing this and doing this. I sat next to 2 of my colleagues / competitors, during a panel the other day, and one of them acknowledged, he looked at me and said, "You're my biggest competitor." And I said, "No, I'm your colleague." There's a lot of business out there, but plenty for both
Yeah.
of us. But I love to win. I love competition, and I love being new. Something new drives me.
Staying on the edge.
Right on the cutting edge.
Oh, man, I love that about you. Taylor, are you there yet? Do you identify as an entrepreneur? Has that identity stuck to you?
Yes, I would say, Lyle is definitely the entrepreneur and looking at, higher level of thinking, like where to go to next. Definitely have that competitiveness. I want to be the best. Being in BDMs, when I know that so-and-so is speaking to my competitor and I win the sale, I'm like, I am awesome.
She calls us, by
I
the
will
way.
call and tell him. Yes.
Yeah.
Got another one. Bagged another
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to
Nailed it.
Yeah.
win. Yes, exactly.
That's what she says.
So,
Well, what I think is interesting about working with family is that it's such a mixed bag. You just don't know how it's going to go. Like being related to somebody, it's circumstantial. But in my experience, in my limited experience with you, I think you absolutely have it. That competitive drive, boy, that's 9/10 of it, You got to have an average level of intelligence. I've never prided myself on thinking intelligence was like my differentiating factor. Smart enough. A lot of hard work, but that drive to just keep on going. You said it well, and I'm excited to see what you guys are going to build. The future's bright, and appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
thanks for
Jordan. We
having me.
appreciate you.
Until next time.